Hello there, everyone. We're bringing back this EOI series, kind of in a bit of a different format here. And in this section, we're going to be talking about neutrality. The Neutrality Acts passed by Congress as World War II erupted in Europe and Asia, as well as the policy of isolationism. And following World War I, America was basically alarmed by the international conflicts that were, of course, erupting in the 1930s, and the American people really did not want to get involved. In fact, they cited that 1928 Kellogg-Briand Pact, which basically outlawed war. 62 countries got together, signed this document, and said, we're not going to use war as an instrument of national policy. Now, of course, the problem with the Kellogg-Briand Pact was that it in no way at all, did it state how they were going to enforce this thing. So Americans are going to continue clinging to isolationism as World War II starts to erupt. And in fact, the decade prior, during the 1930s, there were all kinds of books published in America, during the Great Depression, basically arguing that the United States had been dragged into World War I by greedy bankers and arms dealers. Now imagine that. Of course, anytime there is a conflict, those two groups of people are going to make a lot of money. But we're really not getting into that here. Let's just say Congress put together a congressional committee chaired by North Dakota Senator Gerald Nye. They held hearings basically looking into this, investigating how and why we probably got involved and how much money arms dealers and bankers made. So these hearings fueled this controversy because they basically laid it out and said, look, these are the large profits that these bankers and manufacturers made during World War I. And they referred to them as the merchants of death. And they were like, do you really want your sons dragged into another war, fighting and dying for these bankers and arms dealers to make a huge profit? So Americans are determined to avoid this war at all costs. And in fact, this seeped into every layer of American society. I mean, even the Girl Scouts of America, the cookie sellers of today, the cookie seller empire, even they changed the color of their uniforms from khaki to green in order to appear less militaristic. I don't know how green looks less militaristic. In khakis, I guess they're talking about the way the Nazis dressed over there in Germany. Now, this American sentiment is obviously going to have to influence FDR's foreign policy. When he first took office in 1933, he was very, very comfortable, reaching out to the world in various ways. He officially recognized the Soviet Union in 1933. He set up an embassy in the Soviet Union, and we started exchanging ambassadors, at least I should say. I don't know that we had a full-scale embassy over there, but we had representatives visiting the government in Moscow. He adopted, or I should say he continued, this whole policy that Coolidge and Hoover had set up when it comes to Latin America. He pulled the troops out that we still had stationed in Latin America. He lowered a lot of trade barriers, and he wanted to reduce tariffs drastically, like cut them in half. But as the situation in Asia first and then Europe really starts heating up in the mid to late 1930s, Congress starts passing these Neutrality Acts. Now, the first two of the three outlawed arms sales or giving loans to any country at war. After the Spanish Civil War broke out, they extended the ban to any country that was engaged in a civil war. So this created a problem because Britain, France, the United States did not want to get involved with what was going on in Spain. They were basically fighting a civil war between Francisco Franco, who wanted to turn the country fascist, and a more democratic army, those forces opposing him. Those guys got no help. Hitler and Mussolini gave a great deal of aid. In fact, Hitler used his Air Force. This was like a test run for the Luftwaffe to go and basically see how much damage they could cause. So eventually this neutrality is going to start breaking down. And Roosevelt is going to find it impossible to basically, stay neutral. And because Japan had not formally declared war on China when they invaded Manchuria in 1937. FDR tried to say, hey, those two countries aren't officially at war, so we need to send arms and supplies to China. And of course, he spoke out very strongly about this. He gave a speech known as the quarantine speech, which he said we really need to get these aggressive nations and put them in check. And of course, the American newspapers just went nuts, accusing the president of leading the nation into war. And that's why the United States of America is really not going to do anything to stop Japan or Italy or Nazi Germany. And of course, the League of Nations, who's supposed to be in charge of keeping this stuff in check as well, they're not going to have any luck with it either. So there's going to, go the whole ball game.